As we want to get into the meat of the conversation as soon as possible, I'm going to dive right into it. I'd like to start off by welcoming to stage His Excellency Olusegun Obasanjo, former President of the Republic of Nigeria. A big round of applause as he enters the stage. I can already tell this panel is going to be full of energy, insights, experience, and wisdom. We'd also like to welcome to stage Lionel Zinzu, former Prime Minister of the Republic of Benin. We're also calling to stage Tom Al-Windu, Minister of Energy for the Republic of Namibia. And I would also ordinarily call you Doctor, but I understand that congratulations are in order and that I should actually be calling you Professor Emmanuel Ibe Kacheku. Please, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for this exciting dialogue that is about to commence. As we take our seats, I'm going to balance things out and sit in the center here. And I would like to start off by laying the land. I am extremely privileged to sit right here next to Your Excellency Obasanjo. And I'd like to ask you, you've been instrumental in shaping Africa's economy and have played a significant role in Nigeria's energy sector. So from your insights, your experience, looking back, how can African countries approach the energy transition to ensure both sustainable development and inclusion? What are your thoughts on this?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I believe the most important thing for us is for the rest of the world to ensure that we in Africa get justice. For us in the world as a whole, we need peace. We need security. We need stability. I will even add that we need predictability. And we can only get all this when there's justice. Take away justice in the affairs of human interaction, then you know what you have left. Mm-hmm. Conflict, confusion, violence, and dispute, and disorder. When I was in charge of affairs of Nigeria, I sought for justice in two areas. One is in the energy sector. The other one is in the international finance sector. I went out to ask for debt relief. Some people thought I must have been a Greek joker to be asking for debt relief. But I took it very seriously. And I will give you one example of the debt that we had to pay for. One of our states borrowed money for turnkey for a carpet industry. Turnkey. the carpet industry, has a video of clearing the land, of building, and of commissioning. There was video. But there's nothing on the ground. There was absolutely nothing on the ground. And it's one of the debts that we have to pay for, $10 million. When I confronted those who gave us a loan or supposed to have given us a loan, they showed me this small thing. They gave the loan, and whether the project was carried out or not, once they have given us the loan, we have to pay. So really, some of the money or the debt that we did not have anything to show for it. But of course, the creditors did not accept that. But I went out for debt relief, and I got debt relief. So I got justice. In the area of energy, of course, we were a member of OPEC. And OPEC did very well. The only country that was able to either put down or put up with OPEC was Russia. And at one time that OPEC was trying to stabilize the price of oil, and Russia was pumping out, OPEC came to me and said, look, we appeal to you to go and talk to Russia. It's the same president of Russia now, 40, that was there. And I went to Moscow. And President Putin received me very well. And he said to me, I need money. And if you want me to reduce my output of oil, then you have to give me money. I said, President Putin, do you understand what you are saying? You are asking me to take water from my river to your own ocean. He said, well, he didn't see it that way. But if I will not be able to give him money, can I come and invest in Russia? I said, neither will I. I will not invest in Russia because I haven't got money to invest in Russia. And I have no money to give you as aid because that's what you are asking me for. I think you should be giving me aid. Well, eventually he backed down. And we continue as a member of OPEC to get the best that we could get out of our oil and our gas. I also, for the LNG, when I was president, they planned 3 trains. And I said 3 trains will not be enough. We double it. I believe that they have even gone beyond 6 trains now to 7 trains. So if you ask, as you have asked, do I get justice? I think I try to get to justice, and I will. claim that I get, if not full justice, I get partial justice. But what we are asking for now is a little bit of justice. That's not part of your question, but let me come to it. Because what we are saying today is people have come, the issue of climate change has become more the global issue than it was when I was in government. And as a result of that, people today are saying, look, we have the menace of climate change. We know the climate change and the destruction and the harm of climate change is caused by the emission of the past. And if you continue to have this emission, then climate change will get worse more quickly than we can reverse, stop it and start the process of reversing it. So they say, stop prospecting, stop investing, stop exploration and production of fossil fuel. This is what the industrialized world used to develop, to industrialize, and to become what I think they are today. This is affordable, available, and even on our soil, there's virtually no country in Africa that doesn't have fossil fuel of one kind or the other, coal, oil, or gas. And our position is, and if it's not, it should be that, yes, we are a responsible member of the global community. We will join the world to clean up the mess that some people have put all of us in. But don't allow us to stagnate in our underdevelopment. Justice demands that we too should develop. We should industrialize. This morning we hear that 600 million Africans have no light at night. And you are saying, keep yourself in that position while we remain not where we are, but even better. So we believe that, yes, in the past, we have made our commitment, we have done what we should do, but don't keep us in perpetual and make us perpetual underling. In slave trade, we were a victim. In colonization, we are a victim. In neocolonialization, we are the victim. In energy, we are now becoming over-victimized. When will this stop? When will it stop? So we are saying, yes, climate change is our problem. It's a global problem. And I must, at this juncture, commend our leaders all met in Nairobi, 4th to 6th of September and came up with Nairobi Declaration on Climate Change for the first time. They brought all the documents and all the work together. And I believe that we should all stand by that. That also in standing by that, we should insist that nothing should stop continual investment in fossil fuel for the development, the welfare and well-being of African nations and African people.
Exactly. And I'm going to come back to you, but there's quite a few points that you've touched on, Chief Obasanjo, that I'd like to explore in the conversation, notably the notion of partnerships, collaboration, but also capital investment, and in your last point, the tension that exists between global imperatives, global intentions, and local needs. And this is where I'd like to direct my next question to you, Honourable Minister Alwindo. How do you view the role that African leaders have in determining how to manage that tension between global imperatives and local needs?
Thank you very much. Now, probably want to start off by agreeing with President Obasanjo in all what he said. The fact that Africa is always, or mostly always characterized by all the bad things. It's either it's underdevelopment or it's social strife, and this is usually a narrative that is formed by others. You know, we kind of being defined by others who we are, and I think with the energy and what energy can mean to the continent, I think we are starting to say maybe we really have allowed ourselves to be defined by others. Let's start to define ourselves, what it is we stand for, what we want, and we should be able to do what is. And President Obasanjo, when you say we are victims, we should also not start to play victims. I don't think we should allow ourselves to play victims. Partnership is partnership. Like I think it was said this morning, to say without partnership, for example, the partnership with the global north in terms of investment, for example, we need to have that partnership. But it needs to be partnership that is really interested in a win-win outcomes. It can't be a partnership in any way which is going to actually benefit somebody more than the others. For example, I tell investors who come to Namibia, and then they will come, we have a discussion, like with a round table. And then once they start saying, oh, we are here because we want to help Namibia. And I always say, look, you see, the problem is when you have a partner who comes to you and say, I want to help you, that's no longer a partnership. Because the one who comes and helps you, he's got an upper hand because he's helping you, and therefore you're supposed to subject yourself to somebody who's helping you. But if you redefine the relationship, the partnership, to say, well, as much as you are helping me, but I'm also helping you with something, and therefore let's not, if you're talking about helping, then we're helping each other, but not Africa to be held by others. And I think that's where we start to say the partnership should really be based on an equal basis. And we would want to welcome, the visions we have for Africa. We would want to welcome the investors then who shared in our vision for Africa to be a prosperous continent, especially when it comes to energy. With energy, we are going to industrialize, and therefore we are looking for partners. But if you then also have people who sometimes don't really want to know whether they are really partners, as again President Obasanjo would say, when people did what they did and they became richer, and then when you then start to do what they did and they say, no, don't do that because it's bad for all of us, then you don't know whether it's really partnership. That can't be partnership. I would argue and say the people who polluted the most should probably be the one who should do the most decarbonization, because they are the one who did the most and probably do so faster. But when they are trying to cajole us into something which they determine, the pace they determine based on their own circumstances, completely disregarding the African circumstances, then you actually start to worry whether that's really partnership. But I think together, when we understand that Africa has got the role to play in global affairs, we just hope that our partners will also start to understand that and also respect the African, priorities, so that we can really get together as real partners who are interested, again, as I said, in a win-win outcomes. And gatherings like this, and we talk to each other, we understand each other, I think it's a good way to start forming that real partnership where we can all win as partners.
And on that, I'd like to jump to you, Mr. Zinzu. How do you view the role of regional integration? Because we're talking partnerships and the subline of partnerships is we're talking partnerships with parties that are outside of the continent. But what about partnerships within the continent, intra-African trade, the AFCFTA notably? What role could that play in ensuring that we have a just and equitable transition?
First, I would like to thank you for inviting me. And maybe I will take the freedom to say a few French words to show that Francophone Africa is aligned. Nous sommes dans le même combat que le président Obasanjo pour la justice climatique. Nous sommes heureux, nous petits pays, le Bénin, qui n'avons pas de pétrole, pas de gaz, pas de charbon. Nous sommes contents de dire que nous sommes totalement solidaires. I'm very happy to underline that we are in full solidarity as one of the 25 countries in Africa not producing neither coal, nor gas, nor oil. To say we are in full solidarity, and we absolutely consider that Africa, the population, the people have a right to use their resources and share with other countries. Half of Africa has no production of energy sources. The other half has an immense potential to create a green, consistent economy. We are more than prepared by our efforts to offset some of the effects of developing industrialization and developing the use of fossils in our sister countries, more than in solidarity. But your question is more specific. I mean, what are the important partnerships? Who are the essential stakeholders? First, as the President said, in Nairobi, something happened. The voice of Africa is clear, without ambiguity, and unanimous in terms of the vision, the mission. We will not see any contradiction in between our goal of development and our goal of contributing massively to a just transition in terms of climate change. And it's a voice of Africa which is firmer and firmer. But in Nairobi, something happened. So all the stakeholders are all the countries, the ones importing fossils, the one exporting fossils. We act together. The president of Namibia said, and it was very clear, we depend upon one another. we have never been more in need of working all together. 55 countries in the African Union are involved, half of them without no oil resources, but depending on. I need the oil and gas of Nigeria. I need my other neighbor, Ghanaian. I need Ivorian discoveries. I need them for my own industrialization. But my contribution is that in terms of mix, I will have, like Togo, like other countries in West Africa without those resources, we will have to accelerate for the African mix to be a sustainable. Let's think as if we were one united Africa, because then the figures are totally different. You cannot say it's a crime in Uganda or in Namibia or wherever to develop your resources. No, look at Africa as a united sovereign entity where the countries can perfectly specialize their efforts. Some in forestry, agriculture associated to forestry, hydraulics, renewable in general, and the other one, we need them, but because it is consistent and complementary. The other stakeholders are communities, local communities. What we see, you see, I've been a prime minister, but it has been very, very short. I'm more of a banker and an advisor. What I see, what I observe in Africa, is that the key players in the energy industry now consider they have duties vis-à-vis the communities, local communities. It is about local content. It is about respecting human rights. It is about creating jobs. Creating jobs not by waiting the fact that in the budget you will have the tax positive effect. No. Even before you extract the first oil, the first gas volumes, a duty of job creation. When I like what has been done in Mozambique, in Uganda, in Tanzania, and so on, it is new that by respect for the communities, and for the communities not to be against the fact that their local resources have to be shared. Now we see additional projects with job creation. It's an important part of justice. It's essential. And it can come in terms of social benefits ahead of oil and gas itself. And that, for me, is a partnership in between the national domestic companies or the multinational companies and the local community. I think it's a new idea which is implemented now. And it's very, very important that social, sort of civil society involvement, because we need the youth to be the partner of this wheel. In a large part of the world, the youth is against everything related to carbonation, to fossils.
Yeah.
It's not the case in Africa, because we are in a situation that we share with nobody else. Look, when you cut electricity in Gaza, and it's an immense emotion in the world. When you bomb power plants in Ukraine and cut access to energy to the Ukrainian population, it's an immense emotion in the world. But in my country, where half of the population has no access to electricity, as the president said, 600 million. In Chad, where 90% of the population has no access to electricity. It's Gaza every day.
Yeah.
You have to be emotional. For our youth is in a totally different situation.
Yeah.
So it is a human right to get access to energy for them. And the emotion is not the same when it's Africa every day or when it is in a war somewhere else.
Exactly. That's
Very, very
highlighting.
important. This partnership with our youth, you know something, our median age is 18-year-old,
Yes.
half of the population. It's very, very young. India, it's 28. China, it's 38. Europe, it's 45. We are at 18. We need this partnership with our youth, and they need the jobs. It is absolutely another social right for them.
Absolutely.
So the communities, the youth, and all the operators who are able to create a just transition by adding initiatives.
And this speaks to the commentary made earlier by President Obasanjo in terms of justice and how that should be our ultimate priority. But a lot of the elements that you talk about right now require capital. They require investment. They require resources. And that's where I'd like to bring you in, Professor Kacheku, because when we're talking about these projects and, you know, it's all great and it's ambitious, but how can we ensure, going back to the story that you shared with us actually with President Putin requiring investment, how can we make sure that we have bankable projects and that we position ourselves to be able to fully develop our potential when it comes to the just energy transition?
Thank you very much. I think that helps us change the narrative a bit. My approach to this is that African leaders have got to start changing the narratives. We've talked about this energy justice for the last 3, 4, 5 years. I'm not exactly sure what the essence is. Are we trying to justify it to ourselves? Are we trying to justify it to the individuals who are doing this? Because the reality is that in a business environment, you have two sides. The first 30 years of my life was spent in the private sector before I went to the public sector. And the reality, therefore, is there is nothing wrong with investors saying, no, you need to obey a certain footprint, but that's how we're going to invest. They're simply preaching their own understanding of the business end game. Africa on its own has got to take the mantle and preach its own position. I see a lot of arguments trying to say, no, you shouldn't cheat us, no, you shouldn't, there's no justice, there isn't justice in business, there are positions. So let's not get worried about that. What I think we need to do, and I think we need to begin to ask ourselves, why is there really an end game that we're not seeing? It reminds me very well of Muhammad Ali when he was going to have the fight with, was it George Foreman?
Probably.
In Kinshasa or something. The Rumble of the Jungle. And he spent so much time talking about rope-a-dope, cussing George Foreman out and all that, and getting him upset. And people were wondering, why is he spending so much energy? At the end of the day, if you watch the fight, he spent so much time holding on to George Foreman, leaning on the ropes. But his end game was to tire him out. And perhaps while we are concentrating on the justice of the system argument here in Africa, the end game really is that because Africa is being seen over the next 50 years to be, quite frankly, the harbinger of the entire natural resource of the world, that really what this is laying a platform for dictating to you what's going to happen in 50 years. And so maybe we need to move the goalpost a little bit away from the justice argument and begin to say, is this an attempt, futuristically, to project that in 50 years when most of the natural resource, most of the energy resource would in fact be in play in Africa, that you're not going to make the decision solo on your own. You're going to have to take the whole world along in that decision-making process. And maybe that's the end game. I think Africa needs to, and I'm not quarreling with the justice argument, don't get me wrong. I think it's assumed that nobody should dictate to you how you should exploit your natural resource. But you have to begin to take certain actions that enable you to find those solutions. First, you've got to begin to look at finance. The reason why we're having all this argument is because we don't have the finance.
Yeah.
The countries that have produced oil for so long, how much have they been able to save? At the time of President Obasanjo, he did such a wonderful job, paid off all our debts, began to create huge savings. Those have disappeared. And I want to look at the balance sheet of a lot of countries who are producing oil. Are they preparing for a time when they will be in a position on their own to, in fact, fund the green energy project? Or are they going to be dependent on Western finance? Because if they are, then they'll have to listen to Western financials. That's one. Two is, how about the African regional market? The most virgin market in the world today is the African market. The rest are fairly tapped, growing at a rapid pace. So if we do not spend energy trying to bring ourselves together so that we're building refineries that can cater for Africa, we're creating trans-border pipelines that can help you move these products, you're creating technology reach out within the African continent. We will simply leave this market to a point where, indeed, the Asian countries, especially the Arab countries, very nicely, will come in with the huge amounts of money they have and actually take over this African market. So we need to begin to focus on that. We need to begin to focus on what are we investing in. African governments have got to begin to say that although we do want to continue to explore our natural resource, if the world wants us so much to tie into the end game of global climate change issues, then they need to help us begin to invest on those minerals that give us green energy. But if you look at all the maps you saw today, every discovery in Africa is still in oil and gas. So the same world that is saying you need to get out of it, the same world that is showing us new findings everywhere in the world. So it's for Africa to begin to say, are we refining? Are we trying to reduce our own carbon footprints on our own? Are we looking at our African markets? Are we looking at internal financial capabilities? So I think there's a lot of work for Africa and Africans to do over and above the justice game argument.
Yeah.
And I think we need to begin to move away from this and begin to create specific action points that we can hold as deliverables.
Thank you. So, yes, you can give a round of applause. I particularly like the notion of position because it speaks to, firstly, standing, and it speaks to how we present ourselves. But in order to present ourselves, we also need to know where we're headed. So, President Obasanjo, I'd like to ask you, with all your wisdom, where do you think our priorities should be?
There are a few things I don't agree with. Before we've had positions, but we have never come together. We have been divided to be able to put our position into action that will help us. What was our position when we were being taken as slaves to the new world? We were used against ourselves. They brought gunpowder. Where did they have gunpowder? So, if you say, what is justice we are talking about? Justice for ourselves, first of all, so that we can stand firmly together. Look, an oil country comes to negotiate with Gambia. What has Gambia got to be able to negotiate with an oil country, an international oil company? What has Gambia got? But if Gambia ties up, even in West Africa, as everywhere, you have a position, you have a situation that you can stand and negotiate. So the issue of justice, to me, is I must get justice for myself. I must do everything possible to get justice for myself. And one of the best things that has happened in Africa in recent years was the agreement in Kigali about 3 or 4 years ago on Africa continental trade, free trade agreement. That, to me, is justice. Justice for ourselves so that we can seek justice from outsiders. If we remain in penny pockets, we will never do justice to ourselves and we will never get justice. That I have no doubt about. A friend of mine is dead now. I belong to an organization, and we used to sit down. We call ourselves Interaction Council of former heads of government. It's still in existence. I'm the co-chair of the organization. But when we started in 1983, we were all Helmut Schmidt, Fukuda, Pierre Trudeau, Jimmy Callahan, and we will sit down and pray and meet and talk. And I look at them, and I listen to them, and I look at our own situation. And one day I said to them, I said, look, you people are a bit heartless. And Helmut Schmidt said, why did you say that? I said, look, everything is weighted against us. And he said to me, what I will say to you now, I won't say it publicly. We devised and designed capitalism for ourselves, not for you. And I said, not even for humanity's sake. He said, only go and bring me your economics book and show me where humanity is a factor of production. And that is true. And he said, look, if you know that this is the system that we have created in our own best interest, find how you can get the best out of it. And that is true. And as he said, he won't say that publicly. And he went on and said, look, I will tell you one thing. Your leaders must have modicum of economics before they assume position of leadership. And that is true. And I realized that the money to develop Africa is out there. It's not shortage of money out there. Shortage of money inside Africa, but out there to come in. But how do we make that money to come in? That is also part of justice. How do we make, what do we create? How do we make great conditions to make that money come in? And when that money comes in, how do we make sure that that money stays in? You talk about the effort I made on debt relief, debt this. All that is fizzled out. Today, in less than, 25 years, we are owing today in Nigeria more than we were owing when I was president. What have you got to show for it? Now, that again, justice in our own. So when I talk of justice, it's justice all around. I have the case of Guinea-Conakry, where somebody went to just because an agreement for, I don't know, and without putting a dime to what he got agreement for, he made $2 billion. And then the government said, look, we have to renegotiate. I don't believe the government was able to get any renegotiation. Again, justice. Justice by ourselves, for ourselves, and justice by ourselves with those or partners. And it's like when they came as colonial masters, they came to Lagos, they signed agreement with Lagos Oba about Lagos. What did he know? The agreement was written in English. The other didn't go to school. He couldn't understand English. They said somebody should explain to him. He signed and will make that agreement binding. I have agreement today where land was leased to British colonial power for 999 years.
Sure.
Now, justice. Do you see justice in that? And if we hadn't got independence, that agreement will still be in a distance. So my point is partnership of the rat and the cat. I don't see where partnership is in that. And you say partnership. So my own idea of partnership is when we are equal. We are standing at the same level. And you understand me, I understand you, and we are taking it up. Then we can talk of partnership. Justice, I believe that the difference between business, the way you put it, and the type of thing we are seeing, and the minister mentioned that, if we are seeing, look, the climate issue, and you say, okay, the international oil companies who are located in the countries of those who polluted, and they are telling them, don't invest in Africa. Because if you invest in Africa, Africa will pollute just the way we are polluted. So don't do that. Is that justice? Is that partnership? Is that business? What sort of business is that? Again, they came up with globalization. And we all said, what is this globalization? Globalization, as I see it, is you open your door. Open the door of your house. Let me take whatever I can take. And I close my own door. Because there's no way my hand can reach your own house. But my own house is open. I believe that we need to put our own house in order in a number of ways. And that is what I'm saying. And I will just make this point and so. When I commended our leaders for coming up with Nairobi Declaration, and when I said Nairobi Declaration contains almost everything except this issue of justice, where I say we should appeal to oil companies, both international and local, to continue to invest in fossil fuel for our own need and for their own need. If you call that business, okay, let them continue to do the business. But what they are saying that I believe we should not accept is that, look, don't invest in those areas again so that the Africans will not pollute the world as we are polluted. I believe that is not business. That is cruelty, injustice. And with that type of injustice, we cannot have peace, we cannot have security, we cannot have stability, and as I said, we cannot have predictability. Because if you want really to have peace, you must be interested in peace as I am interested in it. Security must be common security. You are secure, I'm secure. Prosperity must be shared prosperity. You have part of your own, I have my own part. Almost evenly divided. And this is the point. And that is why I say, look, there we should have just energy leadership for council. And it will amount to the same thing for climate, because your just energy leadership council will also be just climate leadership council, whereby our job will be pure advocacy to ward off what we don't want, to say we will struggle to get what we deserve. And that is...
Thank you very much, President Obasanjo. And a big round of applause to our panel. Unfortunately, it is all we have time for, but a lot of the discussion points that we have touched on today will be discussed in a lot more detail throughout the rest of the days. I'd like to thank you for being here, and once more I'd like for our panel to stand up, and perhaps we could have a family photo here at the front while we get the next panel ready.